our next speaker, I think one of the challenges that we've had at Fireblast, and I've heard from other companies, it's always lean in the office. It doesn't apply to the office. We don't manufacture in the office. The things that we do just doesn't apply. So when I had the opportunity to have Tim Schipper from Steelcase come in and tell us about lean in the office, I jumped at the idea because I thought this is a fantastic opportunity to hit the one thing that none of us know what to do and where we struggle at. So I'd like to welcome to the stage Tim.
Great. Thanks, Rick. Thank you. It's an honor to be here to talk to you all today about lean in the office. And my introduction to lean was back in 2003. Steelcase had already been doing lean in manufacturing, which I'll call the concrete areas of your business. And we went through that dramatic change that Bob was talking about, where our business downturned by 40%. And suddenly we had the same work to do with far less people. And so the question is, what do we do? What do we do with all this work that we have to do with less people? So it's 2003. It was my introduction to lean, and they said, help us take lean from manufacturing to the office. And we said, well, how do we even do that? And so that's our story. And I wasn't particularly looking to write a book about that, but my sensei was David Mann. Some of you might know David Mann. He worked at Steelcase. He wrote the book, Creating a Lean Culture. And he said, Tim, you've got to tell the story about how we did lean in the office at Steelcase when David was at Steelcase. And so that was the impetus of the book. What I love about lean is all about helping other people. It's helping find value for the customer, but it's also helping the people in your organization to apply these lean principles and improve the way they do the work. We've been able to apply that at Steelcase. We also have been able to apply that to other companies in West Michigan and even some nonprofits, which makes it so much fun for me. So let me tell you a little bit about lean in the office and the story. Is your office lean? For me, that means, are you making waste visible? And are you creating what I'll call information flow? It's not the flow of the products and the pieces, but are you creating an information flow? And are you applying those lean principles into a lean office playbook? Here's the number one problem in the office, is the wastes are invisible. If you're doing lean in manufacturing, you can go out on the floor and you can watch the flow of the parts and the assemblies and the final product, and you can see it being made, and you can spot the waste. You can see the excess motion. But when you get into the office, you have to retrain your brain. People learn to tune out waste, and there's something in your brain that actually makes that happen. There's something called the reticular activating system. And if you're a new parent, you know all about this, because what happens when the baby cries in the middle of the night? You're wide awake. At the same time, what happens if the dishwasher's running? You sleep right through it, right? So you tune certain things out, and that's what happens in the office. You have to retrain your mind to see the office waste. They're a little bit different. They don't look the same. We did that at Steelcase. We had a team. They had all sorts of waste in their office process. And what we encouraged them to do is put all of the process up on the wall. They called this their wall of shame. Every single document that they produced or handled, they put up on the wall. I bet you all have a wall of shame someplace hiding in your office process. So we had to retrain them to see the waste. That meant if they were starting things too soon before the information was really ready, they were overproducing. If they were handling too much data or too much email, that's the inventory. If they had handoffs, which they actually put on the wall, a series of little hands right on the wall to show where the handoffs were, that's waiting. If they are generating errors during the process, that's a defect. If they're doing rework, and this team had 50% rework in their process, that's overprocessing. If you're traveling to meetings constantly, going from one spot to another, that's the waste of transportation. And finally, if I'm never at my desk, that's motion. and then you have unused human potential and genius. So the same waste that you have in your factory, you also have in your office. There's some more enemies of information flow which create to this office waste. The work is invisible. So if you imagine that entire process that you have up on the wall, actually you can't see it. It's in your computers. And that's the challenge. You can't see where it is. The other enemy you have is everybody's trying to work at everything at once. So everybody's trying to multitask. And it turns out that multitasking is something that doesn't work. The story goes men can multitask at 3 things and women something like 7. And they're wondering, what's wrong with us men, right? But who can multitask? And everybody's working to their own individual priorities. These are the enemies of information flow. So I might be working at first in, first out, right? What comes to me first, that's what I work on. I'm working on the priority given to me by my boss. I'm working to what I think's easiest, or my department rules, or what's hottest, or I might be working at what the customer called about, whatever's late. These are all the enemies of information flow. So what does that mean? We want the information to flow across the departments, across the various functions and silos, and we want that to be defined by the customer, what the customer values. But in reality, that doesn't happen. The work is imbalanced, so we have different functions that are staffed at different levels, so the work's not flowing. Because we're all working to different priorities, it's not flowing, it's going back and forth, and we have loop backs. And the result is most of the time is spent simply fighting fires. All the time the customer is asking, what about me? What about my priorities? So that's information push, right? In Lean we talk about push versus pull. Are things flowing or not? All of that represents information push. It's like trying to push a ball forward with a string. We know that doesn't work. What we need is some type of information pull, where process 2 is telling the first process, this is what I need from you, and this is when I need it, and this is how I would like it. So here's a little case study. We actually worked with the West Michigan Employment Agency, and while we were there, they were just doing a very simple thing. They're trying to match job seekers, people looking for work, with the jobs that were available. 2 different functions, pretty simple. We had the navigators, the coaches, who are working with the people looking for work. They had the business specialists who kind of were keeping track of the businesses, what jobs were available. And lo and behold, they weren't talking to each other. The job seekers were trying to coach people on how to build their skills. The business specialists knew these are the jobs that are out there. And so they put up a simple visual system. So here's the Lean Office playbook. How do you make an office lean? Make the work visual, display it. Have the functions at a daily huddle so that they're all talking together about the need and how you're going to meet the need. You work by the customer demand. In this case, what jobs are out there, what types of skills are needed, and are we meeting those skills? And you try to create work information flow by balancing the workload between the various functions. So that's what it looks like on a simple scale, but what would it look like if you could actually make information flow in a really complex office process? So here's an example from Steelcase. We were trying to make information flow. In this case, we're creating catalogs. Now, Steelcase is a very complex business environment. If you add up all of our products, all of the variations that you can get as far as size and color, there's something like 4 quadrillion combinations. Unbelievably complex. This particular group was trying to build all the catalogs. They were working in an entirely batch and queue environment. Everybody was kind of working on their own priorities. It wasn't orchestrated. And what we needed to do is somehow make this flow. In their case, they're trying to update 20,000 catalog pages every 2 months. So how do they do that? So here you have their various functions. Every function gets a folder on the wall. You're trying to create flow so you can actually watch how that work moves across the functions. If you look on this board, the colored sheets actually represent units of work. So there's 3 units of work in the second set of folders. There's some blue units of work. That's work that's ready to be picked up by a person. So this is all happening across multiple people and multiple functions. The little white cards, those are actually out cards. If you think about going to the library and checking out a book, and you get a little, you get the card. When you did it this way, now it's digital, but you actually pull out the card and they stamp the date of when you have to return it. Those out cards actually showed where the work was, who was working on it, and how long it took. So they're actually using this wall to manage the flow of information. They're also doing that in a priority basis. So the board at the end on the right actually shows the work in what order it needs to happen in. So very powerful. Now I'm lining up the work across the functions, so it's going to flow, and I'm prioritizing it based on what should happen next. And also, I can shift resources to the bottleneck. It was really obvious in this process, because it was now visual, where the bottleneck was. You can actually see about the 4th set of folders in, you have an extended length of folders, actually added folders, and they needed to do that because there was so much work stuck at that particular spot. So now I can shift work to the resource, or shift the resources to the work. And also that's happening all the time because the team is meeting in a daily huddle in this space. Now this team has gone even further. They've taken this manual particular example of information flow and they've digitized it with an electronic board, a large board, not quite that big, but pretty big on the wall. And they're actually showing these same folders and they're showing where all the work is. Very powerful concept. The question is, can you scale it up even larger? This is 20,000 catalog pages processed every 2 months by a team of about 15 people. Here's another case study. So at Steelcase, we have a group called, we call them the specials group. Not because necessarily they're specials, but they're engineering special products. At Steelcase, you can get tables and colors out of our catalogs, but you can also order additional sizes or additional colors that we don't support. And because we are in a high design market, this happens all the time. In this case, they're processing thousands of lines of orders, processing 400 order lines every day. And again, it's all in the computer. But what Al is explaining here at this wall is these are all of the orders that are prioritized for this day. Thousands of lines. And at the top are the highest priority orders. Things like mock-up orders, replacement parts, the highest, the next in order for the customer. Those are all displayed. And then the functions meet. Same principle. Steelcase engineered to order value stream, thousands of lines displayed, 6 functions huddle at this board twice a day so that they can figure out what the priorities are. They prioritize that by the customer demand. And here they actually have cross-trained the staff so that they can move from one area to another area and help out as the work shifts, because what the customers are ordering this week is not necessarily the same set of products that the customers are going to order next week. Idea of shifting work to where the work is needed. Same principles. So at Steelcase, we played the long game of lean really well. So we started in 2003. If you could let me use a football example here. We had a lean team. It was very project focused. The team reported to the executives, had a director of lean. We had 6 external lean internal consultants. We had satellites in our different regions, Europe and Asia, where they had their own lean resources. We tackled some really complex information flow. I love the example of the SMED example this morning where they had all the sticky notes on the wall. I could relate to that. We would put thousands of sticky notes, hundreds of sticky notes up on the wall. And what we're trying to do is visualize the information flow, point to problems, and focus direction. We completed hundreds of Kaizens doing this by looking at the flow of information, looking at ways we can improve that and taking out the waste. And we would review those Kaizen improvements with the leadership. We also put the lean management system in the office. So what Bob was talking to you about, the lean management system is a different way to manage. We would do the same thing and put up visuals in the office. What we needed to do was improve our short game. the day-to-day, the hard acts of playing football on the ground. And then we thought back, well, how does Toyota define the short game? It's when the employees are solving problems and generating ideas every day. As we looked at that, we said, hey, there's other people out there that think the same way. These two guys, Gene Schroeder and Al Robinson, paid a visit to Steelcase. They wrote these two books, Ideas Are Free and The Idea-Driven Organization. And they said, you have to strive for 100% participation. You have to measure your success and how many ideas are implemented by every employee per year. And world class is 100. That's basically 2 per employee per week. And you have to make it team-based. And then we heard from Paul. Paul said, you have to fix what bugs you. You have to make 2-second improvements every day. You have to engage your employees in the daily stand-up meetings. You have to make before and after videos. So what we did is we took the lean improvement system, and Bob talked to you about the shop floor extrinsically motivated $5 per idea system. We replaced that with a fix what bugs you system, which looks like this in the plant. And we're also doing that because of these reasons. The people say, I can work on it, I see things changing, and I'm motivated. So what Steve was talking about, how do you inspire people? It's because they become motivated to make the changes. And so we took that same concept and we brought it into the office, and we found that office teams would embrace this. We had employee-led teams. They would generate hundreds of ideas, implement them themselves, save time, and in one case, this team actually generated a 150-point quality checklist on their own to figure out how they could improve their process. So what's the goal? We want lean to be a self-sustaining culture. What does that look like? We're trying to make forward progress. We don't want to fall back. We put these sustaining behaviors in place. If we take it away, these things slip away. We put all these things in place, lean classes, 8-step problem solving, Kaizens, lean management systems. And we do all of that to try to make this go up the hill and sustain it. But what we really need is we need to have the individuals making everyday improvements, make it team-based, and at Steelcase put in GTD for accountability. Then we can sustain the lean gains and that ball will roll on its own. So here's our playbook. Visual display of work, all the functions at the daily huddle. Work is prioritized by customer demand, create flow, and individuals and teams make daily improvements. But actually, I would move that last one to the top. If we could do anything different, I would say, make sure you do that first and do all the others as well. Then you'll have a self-sustaining lean culture, and that ball will keep rolling on its own. Email is the #1 enemy of making office processes flow. So as Bob said, you can contact us through Voxer. So there's my Voxer. If you're interested in reading more, I talked to the publisher. There is a 20% discount on the book. And if you are interested, I have the details. So thank you very much. With that.
Questions for Tim? Come on, office. I know you got questions. If you don't, I do. So first steps. Our office was a struggle, and we actually, it was just recently where they came in and said, we're not sure how we can go to the next step. What are we going to do differently? And, I went in there with them, and for about 45 minutes, we spent a time just asking. I asked several questions on, what doesn't work, and they started identifying the things that didn't work and bring it forward. But for you, the easiest step to do is the identification.
Yeah, so the process, of course, is hidden. It's invisible in the computer. So for us, a lot of that is making the process visible, having the people in the process describe the actual steps in the process, and sticky noting that and putting it on the wall, and then going back and say, okay, where are the wastes? Where are the handoffs? Where's the waiting? Where's the poor quality that gets introduced later? And then we go through the wastes, and then after that, you start thinking about, okay, what needs to improve?
And this, because I don't know how Steelcase works as far as from your sales team and everything, but is your office, is that considered sales also? Your sales team's doing the same?
Sure, yeah. So we actually started one of the big areas of the business we started was the order to cash stream, or the overall order to cash. And so we would often bring in people from the field, from our dealers and sales, and have them sit in the workshops with the team and saying, if we're trying to make the information flow, what's happening to the customers on the end?
Okay, so customer focused.
Yeah.
Melissa.
Hello, Melissa from Phenix Technology. My question is, you've both spoke a lot about getting things done. And my question is, you teach that, is that on an individual basis, or are you able to incorporate it into your whole departments or work groups, and how do you guys implement that?
Yeah, great question, Melissa, thank you. So we teach it generally in a classroom setting, and then as Bob was mentioning, we offer coaching as well on an individual basis, but our classrooms are typically 50 people at a time and generally full, and we teach that roughly every other month. So we're constantly teaching people, and just by word of mouth, that's spread. We're also, as Bob was mentioning, this idea of shared responsibilities. So because I'm in a team, I will be on a shared list, and those will have the things that we're working on as a team together. So I can see it both from my perspective, and then when we're in the team setting, the team is also looking at the same list.
Other questions?
Yep. Hey Tim, Jay Pearson. Did you ever make an effort to reduce paper within the office? And if so, did you ever have any custom written software to facilitate that?
Great. So we do make file cabinets, so I don't want anybody to reduce paper, right?
Of course.
No, we have looked at reducing paper. Some of the paper-based tools that we use, we have used electronic tools. So for actually doing the flow, for instance, across that. In those cases, it's a combination. We'll use some off-the-shelf type of tools. So for instance, Trello has a type of board that looks very much like that flow board I showed there. But other tools that you may have inside your corporation, like ServiceNow, have similar types of things. And many of the agile tools will also have things that help you manage workflow through the process. And so as those tools have developed, we've actually been using those more and more. With that said, I would say the best thing to do is to start out with a manual paper type of information flow, so you can actually get a feeling for what it's like, and then later actually digitize it and put it on an electronic board. The number one rule that I always tell people is, if you're going to make it electronic, it also has to be persistent in the space. So put it on a monitor, have it up all the time, so it acts just like a visual board. The number one danger with electronic boards is if you have an electronic board and it's only in the computer, then it's hidden again. It doesn't help you.
Good, John.
John from Fireblast. So I noticed in a lot of companies, lean starts on the production floor and makes its way into the office after they see good effects of it out there. What would you say to any company that does not have any production or material handling on site that might be interested in putting it in an office-only situation?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we had the benefit initially of looking at our manufacturing side to see how is lean done there. And actually, we didn't have any place to go to see how it would work in the office. We had to kind of think about how that would go. There are resources out there now that can help you if you're just not a production facility. The concepts are the same, the principles are the same, but how you apply it is somewhat different in a non-production setting. So you're welcome to come to Steelcase. We open up our doors often to have you come and do a gimbal walk at Steelcase and see some of these processes in person. That invitation is open to anybody.
Okay. Thank you very much, Tim.
Thank you, Rick.